Good morning and welcome to all of you. This is the fourth of a 6 series on systems to accelerate productivity. And I think we all have unanimously agreed that productivity means to all of us, including me and the other 2 facilitators, that it means getting the right things done in less time, or with fewer mistakes, with less stress, with more fun, and better relationships. So quality of life, when you step back from it and take a look at it, from a broader perspective, doesn't it mean quality of life? So the approach, my contribution and my approach to productivity is through a practical neuroscience lens. And that has to do with how our brain is wired, what makes us tick, and our natural foundational strengths to take in sensory information and to cognitively process it. And in the past sessions, we examined the importance of our sensory strengths and the order in which we take in information, and what we pay most attention to and least attention to, and how we like to process information. Some people lean in the global big picture arena, and other people lean in the sequential. And then we also examined how important it is to understand your blind spots. And we said the blind spots are merely what you pay least attention to. So when you pay least attention to something, you are more apt to make a mistake. And because it's a least preference, those are the places you might be less productive in. So we said how important it is to align all of our work and our activities with our strengths, to be aware of our blind spots, and whenever possible, to surround ourselves in a team environment or in a family environment where someone else's strengths are your blind spots. In that way, you don't fly alone. We also spoke last time of the importance of environment, physical environment, and how the brain works best in a visual environment, in auditory. As an example for auditory, as a review, if you have to listen, isn't it important to have a quiet, interruption-free environment? So this week, we are going to examine in greater depth the aspect of communication. So what I'd like to start with is I'd like to ask the group what the purpose of communications are, and I will record some of them. What is the purpose of communications?
Information.
What's that?
Convey information.
Okay, convey information. Yes. What else?
To relate to others.
Yes. Convey information. Relate. What else?
Understand relationships.
Sure. Relationships. Rapport. Okay. What else?
To persuade.
Yes. Persuade.
Express feelings.
Express feeling. Oh, that's excellent. Sure. Express feelings. Okay. What else?
Entertain.
Obtain. Ask for things.
Well, I was saying entertain, but
Oh, entertain. I'm sorry. Entertain. Okay. Entertain. What else?
you could say obtain.
Obtain. Because I think, Judy, you have taught us that people don't know how to ask for what they want. And one of your central points is, I want. State it. Are you willing? Right? So, so that's to get, to get what you want. Anything else?
It's kind of an extension of expressing your feelings to convey who you are.
Sure.
Your presence or your identity out there, I guess.
Okay. Convey who you are. Okay, what else?
To help
What,
Emphasize.
what is that? Empathize? Oh, that's excellent. Okay, empathize. That's, like to connect. Okay. Uh-huh. Now, are there anything else? That's a pretty good list. That's an excellent list. So, how much time do you think we spend a day communicating with other people? Just give me some percentages. Just take an 8-hour day where you're working with other people. What would you say?
90%.
Oh, for you, okay, so on one extreme, that's a big one. Wow, okay. And then what would you say would be on the low end?
10%.
10%, okay. So 10% would be roughly 1 hour, right? And this here would be more like 7 hours, right? Okay. Now, what happens? What happens when communications go poorly?
Misunderstanding.
Yep, misunderstanding. So it puts you in a good mood?
No.
No, it puts you in a bad mood, right? So if you go back to your desk and you have to do something and you are in a bad mood, in a moody state, a negative state, are you able to get the right things done in the least amount of time?
No. You end up getting hardly anything done.
Exactly. And what happens if you have effective communications in this area? Does communication time go down or does it go up?
It goes up.
So it frees up more time. Your communication time is less, right, when you have effective communications. And is time money?
Yes, absolutely.
And does it relate to productivity?
Yes.
And if rapport is off and you're irritated at someone, or if you don't understand the directions, the instructions, the information that you need to do your job, that's a time waster too. So is it possible that communications really might be the tip of the iceberg for productivity? I agree. So, we've established the importance of communications. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think of one person in your life who is a difficult person. A person where communications are strained, communication time is excessive, frustration occurs. So think of that one person right now and write the name down. You don't have to share who it is. And I will now give you a worksheet. I hope my tether here is long enough to get to all of you. So what you're looking at here is a communication mode identification sheet.
Thank you.
So let me walk you through this, walk and give you a talk as we're looking at this. So this, in essence, too, is a summary of a lot of the materials we've looked at in the past. So if someone is primarily auditory, what they respond to, well, is discussions. Visual people, visual material, kinesthetic, doing, hands-on, fidgeting. During discussions, an auditory person will listen and ask questions. And who in this group do you remember as being very auditory?
Yeah.
Right. So he responds to discussions. He asks a lot of questions. Now, also the office environment is often very indicative, but quite often we don't get a chance to see a person's office. But it doesn't matter. If you do, you could pick that up because these other things. Vocal speed. Vocal speed is who's the fastest talker in this room? really fast speeds.
Judy.
Ju-
I was gonna say Judy.
Judy. Okay. And what is her primary? What is her primary sensory modality?
It's visual.
Visual.
Visual. See how that works? All right. And who in this room sometimes stumbles and looks down and kind of struggles for words? Stephen. Because when I'm feeling uncomfortable and a little disconnected and a little confused, I kind of look down and I'm struggling for words. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now you'll
Well,
really
you're being-
notice it. Huh? I said, now you really notice it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
brought it to your attention.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do is to heighten your awareness that everyone you meet with will give you signals as to what modality that they're in. Now, why is that important? Why would you want to know that?
I would imagine if you are, like if I'm talking to you, I would need to slow my speech down so that I don't overwhelm you.
That would be helpful sometimes. And for you, I probably need to speed it up a little bit. Because you might say, come on, come on, come on, get it out there, right? Enjoys. Auditory people enjoy having discussions. Visual people enjoy showing things. You love to show your videos. You love to show your beautiful, beautiful PowerPoint slides, right? Now, the last one is a typical language, and we're going to do an exercise in a minute with language, and it'll be an eye opener, an eye popper for you, because everyone uses representational language naturally that reveals how they like to take in information, and we'll look at that in a moment. So. And then on the sequential modality, sequential people tend to be more organized and logical, global more innovative, and you can see this checklist. So what I'd like you to do is to think about this person that you're having difficulty with, and then just kind of put check marks on the characteristics that you most experience sensory-wise on the top and cognitively on the bottom. And when you're done, give me a hand raise. Just do it intuitively and as quickly as you can.
Excuse me.
Sure.
You mean about the person?
The person who you are having the most difficulty communicating with. It could be a family member, a spouse, someone you work with.
What if it's yourself?
You know, in 21 years, I've never heard that. That's very funny, Steve, our videographer. And Steve, what is your primary, as you recall? Was it kinesthetic?
Visual.
Visual.
Yeah.
Sure. And what is your, and so what do you do?
No, actually,
It's
it's
KV?
kinesthetic.
Kines-
Visual is strong, but I really have to.
It's kinesthetic visual, right?
Yeah.
And what are you doing right now? You are doing,
my head.
well, yes. Well, that's a kinesthetic thing. And you're also videotaping the session, correct?
That's,
So that's a combination. You see, you are naturally aligned with moving around, doing things, and looking, right?
Yeah.
So if you had to live in a world primarily of listening,
oh,
and that's right,
shoot me now.
exactly,
Shoot me, burn me, bury me.
exactly. Thank you very much. Okay. So how are we doing on this? So here's the question. Just kind of take a look at the columns that add up the most, and then think about yourself. Are you the same, or are you different? Kathy, what does it seem?
Well, I'm kind of struggling
struggling with this because of the person I picked. I probably should have picked somebody different, probably.
Okay.
But, you know, I think there are some things that are the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and who I was thinking of is my father, who is, you know, very non-talkative at this point in his life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's real hard to have a conversation with him.
Sure. Does he tend to be more of a big picture thinker, or is he as sequential and logical as you are?
I think if, you know, I'm trying to think back because, you know, I don't think he's the one I probably should have picked at this time of his life. But when I think back, I think he's more sequential,
Mm-hmm.
you
Okay.
know.
Sure.
And I think this, you know, it's been more difficult as he's gotten.
So you see the two questions with this is, number one, are they different or the same? And the more operative and powerful question is, are you communicating with them on their wavelength? So are you giving to them information in the way that they prefer to take it in and process it? Can you see the importance of that? Any comments before we move on to the exercise? Another exercise. This is a,
Stephen, I have a question.
yes.
What are the numbers at the bottom, the number of marked items?
Yeah,
For both?
yeah, so what you want to do is to take a look at what column has the most check marks, which is probably their strongest characteristic.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to find characteristics, check marks on probably all the categories, just like you have, but which of the ones are the most dominant, the most prominent? Yes, Joy?
Would a sequential person get along real good with another sequential person?
What do you think, Ruth?
I would think so, but.
I would think so too, yes. And yes, because they would agree and be processing information in the same manner. So what would happen if you had someone very, very highly global and they're unconscious about their being global and unconscious that the other person is sequential? The other person, very sequential, is unconscious that they're sequential, and they're unconscious that the other person is very global. Do you think they have a wonderful, harmonious relationship, or is there a little friction and heat going on? All right. You get the point. So you see, the operative word here is alignment. And now that you're trained in this is your responsibility. You can ask the other person to communicate on your wavelength. Their answer may be, no, I won't do that. I don't care to do that. I don't know how to do that. But nevertheless, with what you know, you can communicate with them on their wavelength. So you're improving their understanding. So that raises the bar on rapport and having a common ground in which at least one person in that relationship can gain the information. And I guarantee you that as they feel better about themselves and how you're treating them, they'll start to reciprocate back. Yes, Judy?
I'm strong on visual and auditory, but I'm not on the kinesthetic. And I
Correct.
can see that two people in my life that I've had the hardest time communicating with are really high in the kinesthetic.
Exactly.
So how would I adapt my listening and communicating to a kinesthetic person other than maybe slowing down? What other thing could I do or things?
You could take a walk with them. You could have a meal with them where there's some physical action. You can give them something to look at. You can put your key points on some flashcards so they can fidget. You can also give them a koosh ball to squeeze and something to move as they're processing, and they'll be very happy campers. And if you feel comfortable, and depending on the relationship, you could put your hand on their shoulder and make a physical touch. And that makes a huge difference. So it's the little things that you do that are the tipping points in that rapport. So when people feel connected with you and they're taking in information on their modality, they're going to get it quicker and like you better and come out of the conversation in a better mood. And when you come out of and when they come out with a better mood and you come out with a better mood, productivity goes up, right? Because you're not as moody and the time to communicate is less. And we said time is money. So this takes a little practice, it takes a little self-awareness. Are you at a place now where you can see and feel and hear the importance of this element of practical neuroscience? Yes.
It's still a mystery. It's still a puzzle to figure out what the other person is.
That's why you have this.
That's why I haven't messed.
That's why you have this, and you can copy it and you practice it, because it's a new skill. Just like learning a new subject. This is a subject, a subject that will serve you and people you interact with the rest of your life.
I wish I would have had this information when I was married, because I have a feeling I might still be married. You know, that between this information and the love languages, I have so much awareness now that I didn't have. And so I can see how this could be a frustration to people that you don't even realize.
Well, this was a deal breaker as well in my first marriage. I didn't have this information in my first marriage either. So, what I'd like you to do, just for a little more practice on language, is take a look at this, and I'm going to be, and this is a test, by the way. And there are right and wrong answers. Usually people say this is not a test and there's no right or wrong answers. But I want you to know that this is a test and there are right or wrong answers.
Okay.
But we'll have fun with it. So what I'd like you to do is just take a look at this. And for instance, the first thing is, this really feels good to me. Is this a kinesthetic, visual, auditory statement? What do you, I'm just going to ask the group. Okay, so I want you to do the rest of them. And then we have the cognitive, like let's look at the logical steps. Is that something a global person would say, or a sequential? Okay, and then down here we're going to have match and mismatch. So if someone said, I need you to show me what this looks like, which would be a Judy, and then Hager says, okay, I'll tell you how I feel. Is that a connect or a disconnect?
Disconnect.
All right, and how many times do we disconnect?
Depends on the person.
So if Bill Pranat said, boy, that really sounds good to me, and I'll say, yeah, tell me how it feels. And he'd look at me and he says, what does feel mean? Okay, so let's go through this. I want you to do this, and then I'm going to ask the group. I want you to do it individually. I'm going to give you 63 seconds and counting. How am I doing, Mr. Videographer? Good. I'm trying to behave myself today. I'm being less kinesthetic. I usually drive videographic people crazy because I like to move around. I'm one of those ADHD diagnosed people, and I'm not ADHD. I'm just kinesthetic on steroids. So I like to move around a lot.
A little bit more interesting for the viewer of the video.
Yes. So I think this little dialogue is kind of good too. It adds a little content for those folks who are interested in this subject. I kind of like this tether here. What you could do is put a bungee cord on it. You see, you get too far and it whips you back into place. What's that?
I said I could say tell your wife, but that might be inappropriate.
Well, my first wife or my second wife?
Your current wife.
Oh.
That you like the tether.
Oh, yes. We have kind of an invisible tether.
Oh,
It's called
that's
heart
wonderful.
connection.
That's marvelous.
Yeah. It keeps you on your best behavior all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm all ears on what you're saying. What is that?
Auditory.
Auditory.
I see your point of view.
Visual.
Will you tell me more?
Auditory.
You hear that from Bill Pernat a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
So you see, you can pick up a lot of information on representational language. Let's get a handle on this.
Kinesthetic.
Okay,
Yeah. Number 5.
let's get moving.
Where are you at now?
I made it up.
Oh.
That's kinesthetic.
Okay. That's very good. You see, you're becoming a better listener, right? That's excellent. That was a test too, and you passed. Okay, I like to see it in writing first. Bitten off more than I can chew.
Kinesthetic.
Music to my ears. Let's dive in and get things moving.
Kinesthetic.
Have you heard these terms before from other people?
Yeah.
Okay, I need something to look at before making a decision.
Visual.
Yeah. Would you send me an email?
Visual.
Okay. You hear that a lot, right? I got to see it. Okay. I don't think you heard what I said. Word I said. Please give me a picture of how this looks like.
Visual.
Let's look at the logical steps. Right. What are the possibilities and options here?
Global.
I need to see the big picture.
Global.
Good. Please be organized and timely on this task.
Sequential.
Will you please use your imagination on this matter?
Global.
It's important to be logical and accurate here.
Yeah.
What are the broad goals?
Global.
What's the data in math look like?
Sequential.
It's a good time for systemic and visionary thinking.
Global.
Okay. Second one, will you please listen to my words? Sure, I'm all ears.
Match.
Match, right? Can you see how that connection occurs and how you can facilitate relating relationships when you hook into the other person's representational language? Okay. I don't see what you mean. I hear you. Let me state it in other words. Right, because it's a visual statement and it's an auditory response. I don't think you heard a word I said. Let me paraphrase what I heard.
Match.
Yeah, this doesn't feel right to me. I understand, so tell me how it looks.
Miss.
Okay, can you demonstrate how it works? Yes, let's walk through it.
It's a match.
The picture really looks good and rosy. I want to hear more, tell me.
Miss. Match.
Okay. Can we take this one step at a time? Absolutely, one step at a time makes total sense to me.
Match.
Good. Now, these words. This is something we've been putting together for about 20 years. I'm happy to share it with you. It's called a rapport language list. So these are helpful words
Thank you.
that one can use. Not only in conversing with other people, but also you can use this in emails. Now, here's a hot tip. Most people, not all, but 80% or more people are primarily visual and kinesthetic. So if you have to communicate with a broad audience in a speaking situation like this, or an email, or writing something, tend to lean it more in the visual and kinesthetic words than auditory. If you have to heavy up on it, heavy up more on the visual and kinesthetic. Also, people tend to be more sequential in this world than global. So if you have to lean in one direction or the other, do 70-80% sequential words, 15-20% global words. Like imagine that, or what are the possibilities here? But then move on and heavy up on the sequential. The deviation to these rules is that when it's one-on-one, target shoot. Does that make sense? The last handout is and I'll be wrapping, is when you start communicating with people you've identified that you are out of alignment with and you need to get into alignment with. Here's a worksheet. The principles and guidelines are on the front, and the strategy. So, for Bill Pranat, it's very clear that you need verbal instructions, explanations. You need to give him the opportunity to ask questions. It's a good idea to paraphrase. It's a good idea to have a quiet environment so he can listen. And he likes voicemail, as you know, and he likes his teleconferences and short discussions to exchange ideas and views. And you need to be patient with Bill, because Bill likes to ask lots of questions. So you get the idea. Here are the strategies for auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and on the back side for sequential and global. So can you see? Yes?
Okay, I've got a question for you. You said well, I understand that Bill is all of these auditory.
And he's
But
visual.
he also likes to see it.
Exactly.
So he
So
can prove that it's right.
exactly. So you combine it, but you focus on his most important. As you gain to practice, you integrate the visual in it as well.
So focus on the most important.
Morton first,
Okay.
and then his secondary is visual. So Bill needs to hear it and see it,
Yeah.
and Judy needs to first see it and then hear it. So the focus on her is to give her material to look at. For Bill, it's materials to listen to, and for Marilyn and Rhonda, they need to have some physical movement and look at it. And Rebecca, Rebecca also is in accounting, right?
Yeah.
Right. Does that make sense that she's a visual?
Yeah.
I mean, would she be really good at it if visual were her blind spot?
No.
Uh-huh. I mean, would you want her as your accountant if visual was her blind spot and global was her strength? Oh my.
She'd hate the job too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unless she was in the creative department of how to dodge taxes or something. I'm looking for the IR. So any questions? And
Got my answer.
and are there any takeaways on this session?
I think it's just super helpful.
I had a question about the last one, or think of a person. If two people are the same, like auditory and sequential, if
Yep.
two people are the same and they don't click, is that normal?
The chances are they'll click on how they communicate, but they may not click on their views.
Okay.
But at least they can understand one another's views quicker and agree to
That
disagree.
That makes sense to me now.
So this doesn't mean you'll agree, it just means you'll understand.
Okay.
And that's foundational,
And that's a communication.
and that is. So thank you very much. You've been great.